Recorded Books presents an unabridged recording of Bullet for a Bad Man, a Ralph Compton novel by David Robbins, narrated by Richard Ferrone.
Brothers born. The Civil War was over. The horror of citizen brother pitted against citizen brother ended with the brothers from the North killing more of their brothers from the South than the brothers from the South could kill of their brothers from the North. The South surrendered while they still had brothers left. The brothers from the South went back to a land blighted by the brutal slaughter. Many of the brothers from the North went back to their old lives too, but some wanted something new. Ned Scott was from the North. He was born and raised in the same state as the president, who had decided that spilling blood was the only way for brothers to settle a dispute. Ned enlisted early in the war and went off to fight his brothers in gray. He enlisted not because he thought slavery was the greatest evil ever known, although he did believe no man had the right to lord it over another because his skin color happened to be different. He enlisted not to preserve the glory of the Union, although he did believe in the Constitution of the United States of America and felt the states should stay united and not break apart. Ned enlisted because he wanted excitement in his life. At the start of the war, he worked as a clerk and made enough money for him and his wife Lillian and their young son Epp to get by. During the war, he was granted leave to go home for a week, with the result being that after the war, he had another mouth to feed in the form of his second son, Boone. Ned knew he had been fortunate. Many thousands killed, many thousands maimed, and he had gotten through the war without a scratch. It helped that he was assigned to the artillery and not the regular infantry or the cavalry. He got to lob cannonballs at the enemy and blow them apart from a distance rather than rush up to them and bayonet them in the guts. With the war at an end, Ned needed to keep feeding the mouths of his family. He couldn't go back to being a clerk. The very notion made him cringe. Clerk work was boring, the same dull routine day in and day out. The prospect of spending the rest of his days in a cage made of stocked shelves scared him more than the cannonballs his brothers from the South had lobbed at him during the war. Ned did what many young veterans were doing. He decided to head west. Land was to be had for the taking, and a man could make something of himself if he was willing to take a few risks. Hostiles were one of those risks. Renegade whites were another. Wild beasts, floods, starvation, and dying of thirst were also on the list, but Ned considered them minor nuisances compared to the boredom of clerk work. So it was that in 1866, Ned packed his family onto a Conestoga and lumbered west at the vanguard of the restless tide, seeking more out of life than was offered east of the Mississippi River. Ned and Lillian had talked it over. Ned did most of the talking, and Lillian did most of the listening. First, Ned wanted to head for Texas, but Lillian said there were Comanches in Texas, and of all the red devils ever born, Comanches were the worst. She refused to live in Texas no matter what. Next, Ned proposed they go to Oregon country, but Lillian said that meant they would live at the far end of the continent and she would hardly ever get to see her parents. She refused to live in Oregon no matter what. "How about Arizona Territory?" Ned asked. He didn't know much about it other than that Congress had created the territory a few years ago, and there was supposed to be a lot of land for the taking. There were also supposed to be Apaches, but he didn't know much about them either, and he decided not to mention them after Lillian's tiff over Comanches. Arizona Territory it was. The hand of Providence had kept Ned safe during the war, and the hand of Providence was at work again as Ned crossed the mile-wide Mississippi and ventured where few white men had ventured before him. He and his family made it across the vast prairie to Bent's Fort and joined a freight train to Santa Fe. From there they rattled and clattered to the southwest until they came to Phoenix,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?